The wind howled across the battlefield, carrying the smell of metal, dust, and something far older than war. Between the jagged rocks, an army of alien soldiers marched forward, their armor shining under the pale light of the twin suns. At the center of the chaos stood Kale, a human far from home, his hand wrapped tightly around the worn grip of his spear. He was not supposed to be there. He had been a scout, meant to observe, not fight. But the enemy had advanced faster than expected, breaking through the defensive line and spilling into the valley. Now the only thing between them and the small group of survivors was him. Among those survivors was her, the alien girl who had once been a stranger, but now carried a weight in his heart he could not name. Her skin shimmered faintly, not with the reflection of light, but with something of her own, a quiet, steady glow. She stood a few paces behind him, watching with wide, unblinking eyes. The enemy raised their bows. Dozens of arrows gleamed in the air like black lightning, ready to fall. Kale felt the air tighten around him. Every instinct screamed to dodge, to shield himself, to survive. But he didn't move. His feet stayed planted, his body an unshakable wall between her and the incoming death. The first volley came with a sound like tearing fabric. Arrows struck his armor, rattling against the plates, some piercing through into his flesh. The impact stole his breath, but he kept standing. Blood seeped through the cracks in his armor, staining the ground beneath him. She gasped, but he didn't turn around. If he looked at her, even for a second, his resolve might break. He gritted his teeth. As another volley came, this time faster, harder. One arrow buried itself deep into his shoulder, another into his thigh. His legs threatened to give way, but still he stood. The enemy warriors hesitated. This was not the reaction they expected from a human. His defiance was like a flame in the cold, something they could not understand. They loosed more arrows, but each found him instead of the girl. He felt the warmth of blood running down his side, felt the weight of the pain pulling at him. The edges of his vision blurred, but he refused to fall. Behind him, he heard her whisper something in a language he didn't know, her voice trembling yet filled with a strange energy. The next volley never came. The enemy paused, murmuring among themselves. Some shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting from him to the girl. Something had changed in the air, not fear of him, but of her. Kale didn't understand it, but he didn't need to. His only focus was making sure she lived through this. He adjusted his stance, ready for another attack. His spear felt heavier. Now his fingers numb, but his will burned hotter than before. A sharp crack echoed through the valley. The ground trembled beneath their feet. A strange light began to rise around her, curling like mist, weaving through the air in delicate patterns. The glow became brighter, painting the battlefield in shifting shades of violet and silver. The enemy's eyes widened. Some dropped their weapons and stepped back. Kale risked a glance over his shoulder. What he saw made him forget the pain for a heartbeat. She was standing tall, her hands raised, her glow now blazing like a star. Her gaze locked onto the enemy line, and her voice rang out, low but powerful. The light spread outward, curling around him like a shield. The warmth was unlike anything he had felt, soft, yet carrying an unshakable force. The arrows lodged in his body, began to shimmer, then dissolve into dust, leaving his wounds closed as if they had never been. Kale's breath caught. He didn't understand what she was, but he knew this was no ordinary girl. The soldiers before them faltered, some retreating entirely. The few who remained stared at her with a mixture of awe and terror. She stepped forward, the glow still surrounding her. Her eyes, once wide with fear, now burned with something fierce. And for the first time since the battle began, Kale felt the tide turning. He tightened his grip on the spear, the pain gone, replaced by a strength he didn't know he still had. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. And deep down he knew, he hadn't just saved her life, She was about to change his in ways he couldn't imagine. The glow around her did not fade. It swirled like living light, bending and twisting through the mist. Every step she took forward made the enemy recoil further. The valley, moments ago filled with the roar of battle, had gone silent except for the low hum of her power. Kale's mind raced. He had seen energy weapons, plasma shields, even orbital strikes, but nothing like this. This was not the cold precision of technology. It was something alive, something ancient. He didn't know if it was magic or some alien science beyond human understanding. The enemy commander, a towering figure with jagged black armor, raised his hand and barked an order. The soldiers stiffened but did not advance. Their hesitation was visible, and Kale realized it wasn't because of him. They were afraid of her. She stopped a few paces ahead, the wind catching her hair. Her voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the air. Kale didn't understand the words, but he could feel their weight. It was a warning, one that made even the commander take a step back. Then, without warning, the commander drew a blade that shimmered with crimson light and charged. Kale moved instantly, his spear snapping up to block. Metal clashed with energy, sending sparks into the mist. The impact rattled his arms, but he held firm. The commander was strong, far stronger than any opponent Kale had faced. Every strike was fast and brutal, forcing Kale back. He caught glimpses of her watching, her eyes locked on the fight, her glow pulsing with each movement. A feint from the commander nearly caught Kale's side, but he twisted away, countering with a thrust that grazed the alien's armor. The commander snarled and swung again, this time with enough force to crack the ground. Kale blocked, the shockwave driving him to one knee. Before the commander could finish him, she stepped forward. The light around her flared, a wave of shimmering force slamming into the alien warrior. He stumbled, his blade slipping from his hand. Kale didn't waste the chance. With a swift motion, he drove the spear into the commander's chest. The alien let out a deep, guttural sound and fell backward. Silence returned to the battlefield. The remaining enemy soldiers hesitated only a moment before retreating into the fog, their footsteps fading into nothing. Kale stayed still, breathing hard, his hands tight on the spear. His armor was dented and blood-stained, but his body was whole, thanks to her. Slowly, he turned toward her. She was watching him closely, her glow softening. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the distant crash of waves against the rocks. Then, she took a step closer and placed her hand gently over his chest where the arrows had struck earlier. Her touch was warm, and he felt a strange calm wash over him. Her eyes met his, and though they spoke no common language, the meaning was clear. He had saved her. Now she owed him more than words. Kale tried to speak, to ask what she had done, but she shook her head. Instead, she glanced toward the path leading out of the valley. He understood they couldn't stay here. The enemy might return, and if they did, they wouldn't come unprepared. They began moving quickly, Kale keeping pace beside her. She walked with grace despite the rugged terrain, her gown flowing behind her like water. Even without the glow, there was something about her presence that made the air feel different, heavier, yet calmer. As they climbed the rocky slope, Kale noticed strange markings carved into the stone. Symbols he didn't recognize, yet they seemed to react to her presence, faint light tracing their edges as she passed. "Where are you taking me?" he asked quietly, knowing she couldn't answer in his tongue. She glanced back, giving a small smile, as if to say he would see soon enough. Hours later, they reached a hidden pass. Beyond it, the landscape opened into a vast glowing forest, unlike anything Kale had seen. Trees rose like pillars of crystal, their branches covered in shimmering leaves. Soft light drifted through the air like falling dust, and the ground was carpeted with flowers that seemed to hum faintly. She stopped at the edge of the forest and turned to him. Her expression was serious now, her glow returning, though dimmer. She pointed toward the forest, then to him, and finally touched her chest. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation and a warning. Kale's instincts told him this place was sacred, maybe dangerous. But something in her gaze told him it was also the only way forward. And whatever lay inside, she needed him as much as he needed her. Without another word, they stepped into the glowing forest together. The glowing forest seemed alive. Every step Kale took sent a ripple of light through the ground, as if the soil itself recognized his presence. Strange shapes moved in the distance, not quite animals, not quite shadows. They watched silently. From behind crystal trunks, their eyes faintly reflecting the soft blue light, the alien girl walked ahead without hesitation, her gown brushing over the glowing plants. Wherever her feet touched, the light beneath them brightened for a moment, then faded. Kale followed closely, his hand still on the hilt of his spear. He could feel that this place was no ordinary forest. It was too quiet. No wind, no rustle of leaves, just the faint hum that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. After a while, they reached a large clearing. At its center stood a structure unlike anything Kale had seen. It was part temple, part living tree, its branches arching upward to form a dome that shimmered with pale gold light. Strange symbols like the ones carved into the mountain path covered its surface. She stopped at the edge of the clearing and turned to him. Her eyes searched his face as if gauging whether he was ready. Without speaking, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the temple's surface. The symbols lit up instantly, racing in patterns that made the air vibrate. A deep sound rolled through the forest. Kale gripped his spear tighter, scanning for threats, but nothing came. Instead, the temple's entrance opened with a slow, deliberate motion, revealing a corridor filled with drifting light. She glanced back at him, and for the first time since they had met, her expression held something close to vulnerability. Then she entered, expecting him to follow. Inside, the air was warmer. The walls seemed to breathe, their surface shifting like liquid crystal. Kale's footsteps echoed faintly as they moved deeper. He noticed strange orbs floating in the air, each one holding fragments of images, battles, star systems, alien faces he didn't recognize. Some showed her, standing in front of armies. Others showed destruction so vast it made his chest tighten. He wanted to ask her what it all meant, but before he could speak, they reached the central chamber. It was enormous, with a ceiling lost in shadows and a floor that shimmered like water. At the center stood a tall pedestal. Resting on it was an object unlike anything Kale had seen, a curved blade made of translucent metal, its edge glowing faintly with the same violet light as her aura. She approached the pedestal slowly, almost reverently. Her hands hovered over the blade but did not touch it. Instead, she turned to him and spoke in her language, soft, melodic words that carried a weight he could feel even without understanding. Kale frowned. I can't understand you." Her gaze softened. She reached out, touching his forehead lightly with her fingers. The moment her skin met his, the hum of the forest grew louder, and a sudden rush of images filled his mind. Her voice, but now clear. "You saved me," she said, though her lips barely moved. "That means you have the right to stand here. This blade is the key to what comes next." Kale blinked, stunned. You can speak to me?" "Only here," she said. "Only in this place where the old ways still live." He glanced at the blade. "What is it?" "A promise," she replied, "and a weapon. With it, you can end what has begun, or make it worse." Before he could ask more, a deep rumble shook the chamber. The air grew heavy, the light dimming, as if the forest outside was holding its breath. "They found us," she said, her tone sharp now. "You must decide. Take the blade and fight beside me, or leave now and survive alone." Kale stared at the weapon, the glow reflecting in his eyes. Every instinct told him this choice would change everything, not just for him, but for her, and maybe for worlds he had never seen. Slowly, He stepped forward, reaching for the blade. The moment his hand closed around it, the floor beneath them pulsed with light, and the chamber roared with a sound like distant thunder. Her eyes met his, and there was no fear in them, only certainty. The blade felt alive in Cale's grip. Its weight was perfect, balanced as if it had been made for his hand alone. The violet glow along its edge pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. The alien girl stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the entrance of the chamber. "They are coming," she said quietly, her voice carrying a certainty that made his skin prickle. The ground trembled. Somewhere above, something massive moved through the forest, pushing aside crystal trees like they were nothing. The hum of the forest deepened into a low warning tone. Then the first enemy appeared. A shadowed figure stepped into the corridor, its armor black as obsidian, its eyes burning red. It was not like the soldiers from the valley. This one was larger, heavier, and radiated a crushing presence. Behind it, more figures followed. Their armor bore the same jagged patterns, and each carried weapons that shimmered with unnatural light. They moved with perfect precision, their boots striking the ground in unison. Cale raised the blade, his grip steady. The girl moved closer to him, her glow beginning to rise again. "They are hunters," she whispered, "trained to kill those like me. If they take me, everything will be lost." The first hunter charged. Cale stepped forward to meet him, the curved blade flashing through the dim light. The strike cut clean through the enemy's weapon, scattering fragments across the floor. The hunter staggered back, clearly surprised, but there was no time to celebrate. Two more closed in from the sides. Cale twisted, the blade moving like an extension of his own arm. The violet edge left faint trails in the air, cutting through armor as if it were cloth. The girl's power surged. Light burst outward from her, forcing the hunters to shield their eyes. Cale took the chance, striking hard. One fell, another staggered back with a deep slash across its chest. Still, more came. The chamber rang with the clash of metal and the sharp crack of energy strikes. Cale's arms burned with effort, but he didn't falter. Every time an enemy tried to get past him toward her, he was there, blocking, striking, driving them back. At one point, a hunter managed to slip past. The girl turned, her glow hardening into a wave of force that sent the attacker crashing into the far wall. The impact left cracks in the crystal surface. "They won't stop," she said, her voice tight. "We must reach the heart of the forest." Cale nodded, parrying another blow. "Then lead the way." With a sudden burst of speed, she moved toward the corridor opposite the entrance. Cale followed, striking down the last hunter in their path. They burst out into the open air, the glowing forest spreading around them. But the hunters didn't slow. They crashed through the trees, their dark forms cutting through the beauty of the place. The forest itself seemed to resist them, branches shifting, roots rising to trip their feet. But it wasn't enough to stop them. The girl led Cale along a winding path that curved through towering crystal pillars. The hum in the air grew stronger the deeper they went, until it was almost a vibration in his bones. Finally, they reached a clearing unlike the rest. At its center stood a massive tree, its trunk wide enough to hold a house, its leaves glowing with every color of the spectrum. The air here was thick with energy. "This is the heart," she said. "If it falls, everything falls." Cale didn't get the chance to ask what she meant. The hunters crashed into the clearing from all sides, surrounding them. Their leader, taller than the rest with a crown-like crest on its helmet, stepped forward. "You cannot protect her forever. Human," it said, its voice like grinding stone. Cale tightened his grip on the blade. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can make sure you never take her." The leader moved first, its weapon a long spear crackling with energy. Cale met the strike head-on, the clash sending a shockwave through the clearing. The girl's glow blazed brighter than ever, and the great tree behind them began to shimmer as if waking from a long sleep. The battle for the heart of the forest had begun. The clash of steel and energy filled the clearing. Kale moved with precision, the curved blade deflecting each strike from the hunters. The leader pressed him hard, its spear darting with blinding speed, each blow sending sparks into the glowing air. Behind him, the alien girl stood with her hands raised toward the great tree. Threads of light poured from her fingertips into the trunk, and the tree responded with a deep, resonating hum. Its leaves shifted colors, and beams of soft radiance spread across the clearing. The hunters tried to push past Kale, but the tree itself fought back. Roots erupted from the ground, wrapping around legs, and branches lashed out like whips. Still, the hunters were relentless, cutting through the living defenses with brutal efficiency. Kale's arm ached, but the blade never faltered. Every time he struck, the violet glow intensified, burning lines into enemy armor. The leader's spear met his weapon again and again, neither side yielding. Then the leader twisted, feinted left, and slammed the spear's shaft into Kale's chest. The force knocked him back several steps. Pain flared, but he forced himself upright, lungs burning. "You are only human," the leader said, its tone almost mocking. "You cannot win." Kale spat blood, his eyes narrowing. "Maybe not, but I can make sure you lose." He lunged, the blade catching the spear's haft and twisting it aside. In the same motion, he slashed upward, cutting deep into the leader's shoulder. A roar of pain echoed through the clearing. The alien girl's voice rose suddenly, sharp and commanding. "Kale!" He turned just in time to see the tree's glow surge. A column of light burst upward, piercing the canopy and shooting into the sky. The ground shook violently, and the hunters staggered, disoriented. But the leader recovered quickly, charging again. Kale met the attack, their weapons clashing in a burst of sparks. Over the din, he heard her voice, not in words, but in his mind. "If the tree's heart opens, they will fall." "Then open it," he thought back, his body moving in rhythm with the fight. "It requires a guardian's blood," she replied. "Mine is not." "Enough, yours will be the rest." Kale didn't hesitate. "Tell me where." She pointed toward the base of the tree, where a small opening glowed faintly. "Strike there with the blade, but it must be done while I hold the power steady." Kale shoved the leader back with a surge of strength, then sprinted toward the tree. The hunters roared in fury, converging on him. One managed to grab his arm, but he spun and cut it down without breaking stride. He reached the glowing opening. The girl's voice filled his mind again. Now Kale drove the blade deep into the heart of the tree. A sharp pain shot through his arm, up into his chest, as if the weapon was pulling something from him. His vision blurred, but he held the blade firm. The tree's glow erupted, sending a wave of pure energy across the clearing. The hunters screamed as the light hit them, their bodies dissolving into dust. The leader tried to resist, but its form cracked and broke apart, vanishing in the brilliance. When the light faded, the forest was silent again. The only sound was the slow, steady hum of the great tree. Kale pulled the blade free, stumbling. The alien girl was there instantly, catching him before he could fall. Her glow was softer now, gentle, wrapping around him like warmth from a fire. "You've done what no one else could," she said. He managed a weak smile. "What exactly did we just do?" She looked toward the tree. "We saved the heart of my world, and we've awakened it. The galaxy will feel this. They will know I am alive." Kale frowned. "And that's bad, isn't it?" Her eyes met his, a shadow of worry in them. "For some, very bad." Kale leaned against the great tree, his breathing uneven. The blade felt heavier now, as if it had drained something from him he would never fully get back. Still, he didn't regret it. The alien girl knelt beside him, her hands glowing faintly as she checked his injuries. "The tree has healed the forest," she said softly. But it has also called out to the stars. Kale's brow furrowed. Called out? To who? Her gaze turned upward, toward the glowing canopy. To everyone, friend and enemy. My name. My bloodline. My survival is now known across the galaxy. Bloodline? He asked. She hesitated before answering. I am the last heir of the Araya Dominion, the only one left who can claim the throne. Many worlds swore loyalty to my family, and just as many tried to destroy us. When my people fell, I was hidden here, protected by the heart of the forest. If I died, the war for the throne would end. If I lived, it would begin again. Kale stared at her. So they weren't just after you. They were after what you represent. She nodded. Your sacrifice has made sure I live. Now every power in the galaxy will come for me, some to protect, many to kill. He let out a breath, glancing at the blade in his lap. And where? Do I fit in this? Her eyes softened. You are bound to me now. By the blade, by the tree, and by what you've done. In the eyes of my people, you are not just my guardian, you are my chosen. Kale chuckled weakly. Chosen? I didn't exactly sign up for that. Her lips curved in a small smile. You did the moment you stood between me and the arrows. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the forest filling the air. Then a sound broke the calm, a distant, mechanical roar. Kale's instincts sharpened instantly. Ships. She stood, her glow fading to a more subtle shimmer. They're coming. We must move before they block the exits. Kale pushed himself up, gripping the blade tightly. Who is it? I don't know, she said, her voice steady. But it doesn't matter. From now on, wherever we go, danger will follow. They left the clearing, weaving through the glowing forest. The hum seemed to guide their steps, paths opening ahead of them. When they reached the outer ridge, Kale saw dark shapes in the sky, ships descending fast, their hulls marked with symbols he didn't recognize. The girl stopped and turned to him. There's a path to the mountains. It will lead us to allies, who still honor my family. But it will be a long journey, and there will be battles before we reach them. Kale adjusted his grip on the blade. After what we've just been through, I'd be disappointed if there weren't. She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she reached into the folds of her gown and pulled out a small pendant, its surface etched with the same symbols that had lit up in the temple. She placed it around his neck. This marks you as mine, she said. Not as a possession, but as a promise. No matter what happens, I will not let you fall. Kale felt the weight of the pendant against his chest. I'll hold you to that. The roar of the ships grew louder. Figures began to descend on the far side of the ridge, their armor gleaming in the pale light. Kale and the girl exchanged a glance, no fear, no hesitation. Ready? She asked. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the strength returning to him, always. Together, they turned toward the mountains, the blade's glow cutting through. The mist ahead. Whatever was coming, they would face it side by side. Far above, the first warships broke through the clouds, their shadows stretching across the land. The galaxy had heard the call, and from this moment on, the human who had taken every arrow for the alien heir would no longer be unknown. His name and hers would be written in the history of worlds yet to be fought for. And neither of them would run.